2, 2, 2, 2.
Check.
1,
Check.
2.
Check.
And that's about usually the time where my microphone goes dead.
Your benefit is that this sound engineer's native language is not English.
That's true.
How come you guys get a table to lean on? Like, you guys get like a table to lean on?
Because we need it. Yeah.
We have to listen to you. We need a table.
So this year we don't have Scott Stanfield dominating the conversation.
Is your mic on?
No.
It was like last year. It was like
It's all you.
Scott Stanfield with Tim and
your
Steve
mic
on the
is on.
side.
Nice.
It was like steak and Tim and I
Mine
were
is.
mashed potatoes and gravy.
You're good, man. You're live.
Oh, yeah, it's on.
Yeah, you're on. We're all on.
you
We're all
on?
okay. How are you?
We're all okay here.
Hit me,
We're
baby,
here. Good
one more
here.
time.
So Tim,
Yeah.
in your keynote, you were talking about the emotive headset.
Yes.
And I have done some work with the emotive headset and found it extremely difficult to use. And all I kept hearing was Obi-Wan Kenobi saying, "Use the mouse, Carl.
The mouse is your friend.
Use the mouse."
Tan Lee, the CEO of that company, tells me that their 2.0 device is going to just rock.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not that 3.0.
And if they admit to having a 2.0 price, they'll Osborne themselves and not be able to sell any of the 1.0 products.
Kind of surfacey, isn't it?
Yeah, funny that.
Well, hey, how you doing?
Hi.
I think we're about to start.
That was the lamest hey back
No, no,
I've ever gotten from a
we'll get a
Bulgarian crowd.
response. We'll get a response. So how many listen to .NET Rocks? Raise your hand.
Woo!
Awesome. So you've heard the live shows before. What I do is I yell, "Hey, Bulgaria, welcome to .NET Rocks," and you guys go crazy as Bulgarians can possibly get. Okay?
Which we know is pretty damn crazy.
Yeah.
From past experience.
All right. As crazy
Have
as
you been to a football
Bulgarians,
game?
as crazy as Bulgarians can get in a setting like this. All right. Are you ready? Are you going to pick up the chairs and knock the person over next to you? You ready?
They are bolted to the floor. You have to have some
Pretend
enthusiasm
you're getting
for that.
free Rakia.
Nice.
Yeah, free Rakia for everybody. Here we go. Ready? Hey, Bulgaria! Welcome to .NET Rocks!
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
There's 5,000 people in this room.
It's amazing.
That was a big sound.
I think it's a fire hazard, Carl.
They have fire marshals in Bulgaria?
I don't think so.
No?
They put fires out with Rakia.
Yeah. That'll work.
That actually, I think, makes the fire worse.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, it's .NET Rocks Live and DevReach.
Here we are. This is our fifth year here?
Something like that. Fifth or
Something
sixth.
like that. And we have an esteemed panel of .NET Rocks regulars. Mr. Forte,
Mr. Franklin,
how are you?
I am doing very well.
Having a good show here?
I am having a good show. I got to introduce Scott Hanselman on the keynote.
Yeah, it's been great.
It has been really great. Scott was great. Tim was great this morning. Jesse was great. We had a great show so far.
You didn't introduce Tim this morning.
I did not introduce Tim this morning. I was sleeping.
Nice. That was a good party last night.
There was a lot of Rakia, the local drink, last
And
night.
Tim, you just did a killer keynote. Tim Huckaby.
Yes, thank you. It was fun. And Richard introduced me, which I genuinely enjoyed.
Richard does a better job than I do.
Yeah, he's a pro.
And Lino Tadros. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
And I really enjoyed your keynote yesterday. It was great. And I learned a lot of things, and I thought I had known a few things about WinRT, but it just goes to show you, man, unless you're in the trenches and doing it, you're not coming across these problems. Well, we've got all this talent here, and we're going to talk about
Building a software business.
starting your own company.
Well, and I thought we got a really interesting array of folks that run their own companies, but lots of different approaches. So maybe we should start at Lino's end and tell us a little bit about Falafel Software.
Sure. Falafel Software, this is the 10th year for the company in the United States.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. We have been doing consulting and training mainly on .NET the whole time. Only the last 18 months, we also got into iOS and Android for mobile development. But mainly, we are a .NET company from the get-go, before the alpha.
And, I mean, true consultancy, so companies come to you to get software built?
Yes, actually, a lot of companies in the United States, in Europe, and in Australia come to us whether to help them out finishing up something that they're hitting the wall with, or
Right.
to build the entire application from the start till the finish. So it could be a 2-week job or a 2-year job.
And would you say that your clientele built mostly by word of mouth, or did you have to do any actual advertising, or was it always just referential?
Usually for .NET, we didn't really have to do much, but for mobile, we feel like we have to do a lot of advertising because we are not known in that world. But for consulting, for .NET, C#, Silverlight, WPF, usually people see us in conferences all around the world and say, let's call these guys and see if they can help us out, and the rest is history. But
And you get a lot of referrals too. I mean, that's how consulting works.
A lot of the companies that we have been working for have been customers for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Happy customers begets happy customers.
Yeah, like
in this business.
Telerik says, deliver more than expected, and for falafel, we always say invoice more than expected.
Tim, we heard part of your story at the keynote this morning, the whole creation of Internology and so forth, and you actually worked for Microsoft at one point in your life.
Yeah, that's where I learned how Microsoft builds software. Certainly was the genesis for founding Internology. Absolutely.
Right. So was it an example of what not to follow? Or?
I have to be careful here. I just realized because most of my engineers listen to this show.
Sure.
So
Hi, guys.
I've got to be a little bit positive about starting Internology and then Actus. I guess my story is, I was young and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I wanted to do it better and with more integrity. The company I was working for did not have the integrity that, they're just awful people, to tell you the truth.
Nice.
Wow.
That was Microsoft?
No.
Just asking.
No. There's plenty of awful people there, by the way. So, it doesn't take a lot of money to start a service business. That's what Internology is, service business. It takes customers, right, Lino? And it takes some employees. So founding the company was easy. Keeping it running for a decade, not so easy. The other side,
sessions and everything else.
So Internology gets hammered in downtimes. Now, it just so happened for the last few years we've been doing pretty well financially, but historically those economic downturns have been painful. Now, I also founded a product company recently, totally different.
Because you didn't have enough pain in your life.
Yeah.
Another one.
So the product company thing, as Steve well knows, takes a ton of money. And it's not about the technology in a product company. It's about marketing and sales and all that type of stuff. So those are my two worlds. And they're equally painful. And I have professional jealousy on both sides, right? It's kind of awkward at times.
I'm always surprised. Anybody I work with who's in the consultancy side always wants to make a product. And the product people always talk about how wonderful it would be to be a consultant.
Absolutely.
The grass is always greener.
Absolutely.
What you don't have, right. And Steve, let's talk about your experiences with starting your own businesses. You've been sort of doing your own thing ever since
childhood
DOS, 1.0. Tell us your story.
Well, I started when I graduated university, which was probably more older before a lot of the people in this room were born. I worked on Wall Street for a year, so don't blame me for the financial crisis. This was in the 90s. And I couldn't install stuff on my computer, so I started my own business. That was kind of my excuse. I would get in trouble.
Software sucks. I got to build it myself.
Well, no, the IT guys I'd get in trouble for installing AOL on like my work computer. Right? It was like 1993 or 1994. And so I said, if I start my own business, I'll have complete control over all the technology. So I started a consulting company just like Lino and just like Internology. I did that for 5 or 6 years, and I realized it sucked. And I said, I want to build products, so the grass was greener on the other side. Took a slight detour during the dot-com era, but I started 2 product-based companies. And the first built a product that was not for software developers. What it did is it was more of a product for marketing people. We calculated how much companies spend on the internet in certain verticals, in 4 or 5 different verticals. And from start to finish was about 5-6 years. We started it with our own money, a business partner and I. And then about 5 years later, we sold it to a publicly traded company. So I actually got to watch the beginnings to the actual end of a company. From literally, we used to joke that the first version of the company, the first office was my apartment when you used to come over. The second office was the Starbucks. Then the third office was where we actually, paid people rent and actually had an office with servers and stuff.
Now, one of the things that is interesting about you 3 guys is that you have always been very well connected. Tim, you've been well connected at Microsoft. Lino, you worked at Borland with Anders Halsberg. Steve, you've been in New York City where marketing is like having lunch with some really powerful person. If you're in Bulgaria or if you're in some more remote place where you're isolated from people and all you have is that website and that internet connection, that's a different story, is it, or is it not? I mean, do you find customers and people out there on the web that are just in the middle of nowhere that you work with?
Well, I mean, here's a great example is, Telerik. I did not found Telerik. I started Telerik. There was probably about, 50, 60 people at the company at the time. We're 500 now. So I've been there from the early days. But, when I started there, we had one office right here in Sofia. And look to Telerik as an example of an entrepreneurial success in a remote location. If you think, Telerik is successful, I think they're successful. Look no further than that.
Yeah.
Using effective marketing, effective internet. Eventually, when the company grew big, they opened up a small office in the United States. When I started, the Telerik office in the United States was in the basement of a Bulgarian who moved to the United States, right? And now we have an office in the United States with like 100 people in it, right? But that's a different story. This is many years later. So you definitely can do it from a remote location. It's a bigger challenge, but you definitely can do it.
Guys, I think most folks who are considering starting their own software business, haven't done it before, are trying to figure out the leap. I have a job, maybe I'm doing development, and I want to be out on my own. And I think that's the question I get the most often is, how do you make that first step?
Well, have a seat.
Or in my case, have a couple of seats.
I got the left sheet going, but that's okay.
I had to sit next to him on the airplane ride here. So
Yeah, he did not have fun sitting underneath me.
Just saying.
Anyway, it takes a lot of work, and your state of mind, I think, probably I'll speak on all of us. You have to understand that you have to give Saturday to get Sunday back when you're starting. You're not going to get hired for a lot of money from the first job if you're not known a lot of stuff. So a lot of us had to go speak in different countries, and we love what we do for free. People pay maybe our hotel and our flight, but when we started 20, 25 years ago, we loved doing it, and we do speak in code camps and users groups and all that stuff. And the first job, people say like, I can't afford that. You know what? I'll do the first one for free. Just let you see what kind of work I can do. And then they get very excited. I remember my first gig I was in Delphi World, was Hewlett Packard. Hewlett Packard had a major Delphi server, and they had a major COM problem. And they wanted somebody to come in for 4 hours to take a look at it, and the big companies would not go for 4 hours. It's not worth their time. I accepted, and I went in on my own and fixed the problem in 1 hour. I didn't milk it. I didn't actually do a 4 hour worth of billing. I just 1 hour, and I fixed the COM problems, and all the servers were back up again. And when they saw that, now every time they have a problem, they used to call Lino guys. Like, this guy fixes it really fast, and he doesn't charge days and days. So I started going, and when I started my company and so on, I had 3 people working 40 hours a week for 2.5 years at Hewlett Packard because of that. So you have to remember the ethics, like Tim said. You have to show the integrity that you actually have to prove yourself in the beginning. After that, this guy tells the other guy, this guy was good, and then the next guy. So you have to be patient. You're not going to make $1 million on the first deal you're going to ever make. So you have to be patient, love what you do, and the money comes later.
Is this business a true meritocracy?
I would love to tell you if I know what that means. I would be more than happy.
Can you make it just on being awesome?
No, absolutely no. I don't think so. And let me paraphrase what Lino just said to answer your question. Sacrifice.
Yeah.
If you really want to jump in either on the consulting, service, or product side and be an entrepreneur, it's huge sacrifices. I tell my engineers all the time that the typical internology engineer, or in this case, business owner, doesn't watch TV. I don't watch Grey's Anatomy.
You build
Apparently,
software for
we're
it.
not allowed to. But
Yeah, and it's like Lino said, it's a 7-day-a-week job.
Yeah.
It's hard to go dark. Absolutely difficult to go dark. Although I totally believe that everybody should have one dark vacation, meaning no
Off the grid.
Yeah, you can't call
No cell
me, you
phone.
can't email me.
I've always been a big believer in letting your customer miss you once in a while, just to remind them that you actually like it when I'm around. I'm a good thing. Lino, I feel like you jumped over a really interesting thing, especially starting out, which is going from one to more than one. I mean, when you start out and you are the product as well as the manager, before you hire your first guy on. I mean, how long did you stay just you?
A long time, almost like 72 hours.
Nice.
Yeah.
I actually got my first job working from my garage in the Bay Area, and within 72 hours, HP says like, oh, is there more Linos out there that we can actually move things along? And I called my friends that used to work for me at Borland at the time, I was like, hey, you want to do this full time? Like, sure, how much does it pay? And I told them like, oh yeah, we quit right now. So we started 2-3 people. Within 1 month, actually, we had 3 people. And then within another 3 months, we were 10 people. And after that, we had a lot of people love to come to work for the company because the company was almost going 500% increase in revenue and size almost every year. Wow. So we had people like Steve Teixeira. I hired him as the CTO of the company at the time. He's now the head of the parallel programming and C++ at Microsoft. We have Charlie Calvert, worked for the C# team. And we had a lot of great people coming through Falafel Software for the last 10 years.
I find a lot of folks challenged by this whole, why would that guy work for me? Why wouldn't he just go out on his own company as well?
This is an awesome question, and I'm sure I'd love to hear from them as well. Being an awesome developer doesn't mean that you can run a company. They are completely different things. I know people that are way, way more intelligent than I'll ever be in software engineering, but it doesn't mean that you can actually sit down with a CTO or a CIO or a CEO and make a deal to understand or make them understand how we can build great things for you, and you can actually put your trust in a very small company of 35 people. We're not IBM with 4,000 people. It takes a lot to be able to sit down on that in that restaurant or in a boardroom and make that deal. And I know a lot of people that are geniuses don't have it to be able to convince somebody that I am the person that you should go with. And when you're a consulting company, usually whether you call it Falafel Software, you call it whatever you want, it's really based on a personal relationship. If they believe in you, they're going to give you the project. It's not about the company. It's not, you don't carry IBM behind you or Microsoft or anything like that.
So I have a couple things to add to that, even circling back to starting that business, making the leap. And everyone I talk to that comes up to me for advice on starting a business always says, Steve, how'd you make the leap? And I said, well, I just did it. I just woke up one morning and said, I'm going to do it, and I made the decision and I stuck to it. Most people always have an excuse. And and they're good excuses. I have kids that are going to university, or I have, a family to support, or my job. So you have to determine if it's right for you, and don't wait. All right, don't sit around and say, well, first, I'll wait 6 months. We'll write a business plan, and we'll look around. No, if you have an idea of what you want to do, you think you can do it, you can afford to have some time without an income to get started, jump in and get it done. Second thing I wanted to comment on is what Lino was saying about 72 hours before you had your first kind of employees and things like that. I've always started the businesses with a partner from the beginning. It is because Tim was talking about sacrifice. It is impossible to start a business on your own. Bill Gates did not start Microsoft on his own. Steve Jobs did not start Apple on his own. Telerik didn't get started by one person. There were 4 founders. All the businesses I've started had multiple founders. You need the people. One is the shared sacrifice, meaning is, when you want that dark vacation, you need someone else tending the shop. And the other is, as Lino said, is you need some differentiators, right? One guy will be the tech guy, one guy will be the marketing guy, one guy will be the business guy in that respect.
I agree 100%. Although I did it in the beginning on my own, but I'm the kind of guy that I'm a sensitive guy. So you don't want a guy like me running a company because everything is emotional. It's like, oh man, you want somebody very stable being the CEO, not like me, But you learn on the fly, and he's trying to actually not go hyper on everything. Oh my gosh, they're doing this. Or you have to have somebody running the company that's a little bit more calm during the good times and the bad.
Not just the emotion. You mentioned that a developer doesn't necessarily know how to run a business.
Yeah.
I can't agree more. And what I found interesting is a company in a nascent state, in a very early state, contacted me a few weeks ago. And they said, hey, can you maybe be on our advisory board and give us some advice? And it was 3 developers building a great tool. And they said, where should we go next? We're thinking of going down this road. And I said, have you considered the other side? And they said, no, oh my goodness, that opens up so many more doors, that's great. And they said, oh, wow, how did you come up with that? I said, well, I'm just looking at it from, a marketing and sales perspective. And I said to them right away, I said, you can't call me every single day, right? If I'm on your advisory board, of course you could call me a lot, but I go, you need someone to make these day-to-day, hour-to-hour decisions. You need someone to augment your technical skill with business skill.
The one thing that I can see as a common theme between all you guys, and probably between all of us up here, is we have technical know-how, but we also have that personality that it takes to talk to business people And it's very contrary to your average developer's personality, which I think is a little bit more internal, a little bit more. So is that the advice that we're really giving people is, learn stand-up comedy, learn how to talk, take a public speaking class?
It helps.
Well, I'm going to paraphrase from you then. It's just, you guys are all business leaders, but you all started out as tech people. Like, what happened to you? Where did you go wrong?
Yeah, that's called crossing the dark side.
Yeah.
We crossed to the dark side. I think to support these guys' points, especially in Lino's case, I lived the same thing. If you're billing like the way we started, I was, 150% billable, right? 60, 70-hour billable weeks for months. But then you've got to invoice, and then you've got to collect.
Right.
Follow up on the invoice.
And there's just not enough time in the day to do that.
Payroll for the old employees.
And
the
then
medical.
someone's got to read the balance sheet and do the income statements, and it is just too much. That's why business people, that's the tough leap.
Yeah.
My engineers hate when I say this, but really good engineers are a dime a dozen.
Ooh.
They really are. The complexity of running a business is not engineering. You guys will agree, I hope.
No, I'm sitting in front of 500 Bulgarian engineers.
And they look pissed.
This is the first one I disagree with them about. There is a lot of good engineers, but I think if you have a great engineer, it's not even worth like 10 good engineers. It's in the hundreds of times better to have what. Oh yeah, especially when you have a small consulting company, you're looking for a senior architect level. Knowing how to code does not mean that you're an architect level.
That wasn't Tim's point. Tim's point was that engineers, in this room, we have 500 engineers, right? But entrepreneurs, people who can run a business, understand the business side of running a technology company are hard to find.
Yeah.
That was Tim's point.
I'll let it go this time.
Okay.
So, you said, I didn't want to let this go, Lino. You're not the CEO of Falafel?
I am.
Okay.
I am the CEO of Alpha, but I write more code and do more training than anybody else in the company.
So who's the grown-up in your company?
Yeah,
who's
the adult
who runs the
supervision?
company?
Who keeps you out of jail?
John Waters. John Waters is the president.
I
and CEO
met
of the
John.
company.
He is a grown-up.
He is an
he is.
amazing guy. He's a find. But don't. This hopefully will not air in America. I don't want him to leave.
not at all.
No.
John is just an amazing guy. A couple of years ago, I just promoted him to be the president and CTO of the company, and he is definitely the right person to have to do the day-to-day operation thing. And he comes to me every time there is a major decision that will impact the company for the next 6 months to a year, and I'll be more than happy to jump in. But the day-to-day operation of the company is definitely, he does an awesome job. He definitely does a great job with the company. All the engineers in the company in 6 states love the fact that they can come to me, they can come to John to ask technical questions. And that's the thing about software consulting and software in general, is that you really cannot get a business guy that doesn't understand technicality or source code to be able to run a consulting company. First of all, you don't get the respect of your people. Even if you are the CEO of GE or Pepsi-Cola running the company, will not impress coders. They want to be able to say like, Mr. CEO, I have a bug in my XAML that I'd like you to take a look at. And if you can get in and fix it for them, like, man, I'm happy to work for a CEO that actually can fix my bugs.
Right.
Other than that, it would be very difficult. Even if you're the best technical CEO guy in the world, something about our industry, which is not in any other industry, we have to be technical to understand what's going on.
But is it, you said, and this is to Tim's point, where you said that there's less technical business people. Do you think that we should have more technical business people? Like, do you have to have that technical
like Steve,
background?
that's a talent. That's a real rare talent.
So if you're technical and then you start getting into the business side of things, you have a bigger leg up than your business cohorts who may not be so technical, is maybe what I'm paraphrasing.
Yes, you paraphrased correctly. But can I tell you a little story about that reminded me, the respect thing? The CEO job is a lonely one. It is a very lonely job, if you're a good CEO. I did a keynote for Steve Ballmer once, and he's the CEO of Microsoft. I'll make a really long story short. The PR people said, you're not even going to talk to Steve. You're just going to run up on stage, do his demo, and whatever he says, go, right? Well, it just so happened we got to talk to Steve, and he runs up, he says, Tim, and it was the cancer thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
3D, WPF. And he
In New
says,
York?
you're right, at NASDAQ. He runs up and he says, Tim, I just don't want to appear stupid on stage. just tell me what this is built in and how'd you build it and all that. I'm like, well, Steve, it's .NET. And he says, really? Primitives? And I was like, you know what a primitive is? I'm like, holy shit. The CEO of Microsoft knows what C# primitives are.
Right.
And immediately, I went from, oh, he's a big CEO guy to, man, I respect him because he understands the technology.
Yeah, very important.
And I think this is the only industry, I think, you guys may disagree, where the CEO really needs to understand a little bit about the technology, which has been difficult for my CEO, right? She comes up from the business side, so it's been a learning curve for her on the internology side.
It's a challenging dynamic to deal with that, and I wonder, when you're trying to lead a company like that, how you can actually maintain your chops. Like, how many hours in a given week are you doing the coding side, Lino?
Well, during the day, it's all business, and during the night is all the coding, because you cannot write code during the day, because every 5 minutes there is somebody coming to your office, there is a phone with a customer, so there is no way. You put the kids to sleep, and your day starts around 10:30 at night.
That's when you get it done.
Sacrifice.
Yeah.
10 years in.
10 years in, but now I only work half days, only 12 hours a day, that's it.
Only.
Spectacular.
Steve, I've thought of you as a startup guy. Can you talk about the differences creating a startup versus creating a consulting company and sort of the bootstrapping of that?
So, my experiences are actually different than Tim and Lino, is that I've built products that are not wrapped around consulting, right? So, Internology was a consulting company, and, Falafel is a consulting company. So, bootstrapping a startup is a lot different because you're building something. So you need to spend time where you're not going to get a paycheck. And so you're going to build a product. So you have a great idea. So your idea is, I'm going to build the next XYZ product. And you're going to write this software and you say, I think it's going to take 6 months. Well, guess what? It's going to take probably more like 8 or 9 months. But we all know that. We're all developers in the room.
Yeah, the difference now is instead of lying to your boss, you're lying to yourself.
And you're also lying to the people who either gave you some money to get started or your bank account, right? If you're living off your savings, right? So those lies become quicker and, those lies become more and more acute. So what's interesting is when you start in this environment, there's pressure to release. And what's great about it is the startup industry is built around releasing early and releasing often. A lot different than the way we build enterprise software, for example, where we just say, let's give a beta in 8 months, or, our first beta will be 2 years from now. So Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, has a quote that I live and die by. He said, if you are not embarrassed by your first release, you waited too long to release. And the reason behind that is more than building software as a consultant for a customer, because let's face it, customers don't know what the heck they want, right? Whether you're an internal IT department, whether you're like Lino and Tim building for external customers, they don't know what the heck they want. But when you're building a startup, if you build the wrong thing, you're out of business, right? You just wasted 6 months or a year of your life with no paycheck, and then you got to go get a job. Right? So what you do is you release early and you release often and you put it in front of the customers, and then you don't necessarily build what they ask you for. You find out what their problem. So customer, Henry Ford has the famous quote. Everyone know who Henry Ford is, right? He invented, mass production of the automobile. He didn't invent the car. Some people think he invented the car. He invented the mass production of the automobile. And he said, if I listened to my customers, I would give them faster horses.
Yeah.
Right? So in essence, you can't build faster horses. You need to be innovative. So what you do is you build your V1 prototype, you bring it to the market, and you put it in front of the customers. And you write down very politely all the things that they tell you you need to put in your product that they will give you money for it. Then you go back and argue with your business partner, because one of the two of you is going to be like, no, we have to build exactly what the customer wants. Customer number one. Customer's always correct. What you really do is you analyze the problem.
Translate it.
You translate it, exactly, and you come up and you solve the problem. And a lot of the things they bulleted will be part of that solution, but not all of them.
Now, it seems like there's a very small line between the consultancy that was building software for a customer and the startup that was building a product that they ultimately sell to a customer. And, where's the distinction there?
I mean, we're doing the same thing. We're just selling a different product, right? So Lino's selling hours, a finite commodity. And they say, we need this software built. And Lino says that's going to cost, I think your rates are about 1,000 euro an hour. Or is it 2,000 euros an hour? I forget. It's cheap. It's very cheap. Lino's very, very cheap. And,
Thank you.
and you're building something for them. They usually give you some kind of design specifications. At the same time, you're doing the exact same thing in a startup, except you have no specification and you have no hourly rate. You're just building something for a future customer to go buy. So you're doing roughly the same thing. You have to figure out what they want. You're just not invoicing and you're selling more of those units at the end of the day.
Well, isn't the consultancy software is usually very tailored, very specific software, whereas the stuff that you're selling to many customers has to be a bit more general. Is that a rule or a myth?
That is a rule. However, is a lot of startups fall into the trap of building something tailored to their first early adopters.
Yes, right.
Which then they usually never grow bigger than a niche player to those first early adopter customers.
So the kinds of technologies we should be looking at are the plug-in technologies, the adapter kind of configurable things that don't lock the customer into specific features.
Well, we like to lock them in to keep buying the product.
Yeah, sure.
But you're absolutely correct, right? We want to make sure that they're always going to be extensible and build something. So one of the companies I built that I was describing when we first logged in.
Nice.
when we first logged into .NET Rocks an hour ago.
Yeah.
We, as I said, we provided analytics to businesses, and it turned out some of our customers just wanted the data feed and do it themselves. And then, that was just a great example of trying to adapt to their needs, but it fit within the mission.
Essentially sold a different product at that point.
Right, we sold data feeds.
Nice.
Had to price it different, so it gets confusing.
Let me spin this another way. Have you ever had a customer on the consulting side come to you and say, hey, we think this would be a great product.
Constantly.
Let's partner.
Every frickin' project.
Always.
Yeah?
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let me be clear, Internology doesn't do consulting, nor does it do training.
Right.
It's a project company.
Mm-hmm.
So we build products for product companies. A lot of our customers are software companies.
Right.
But every customer this should be a product. You guys should take it to market.
Yeah.
On the Internology side, we don't know how to do that. I think focus and ambient ignorance is extremely important. Ambient, I'm aware, ignorant of what I don't know. Right? Taking something to market is very expensive and difficult.
You said the word focus, which is don't try to do everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think Internology's success is because they're laser focused on the XAML stack.
Yeah.
Right? Which now has to change a bit because of WinRT. But
We're also focused on building a type of thing. You just said it. We build projects, and you build projects mostly for software. You build products mostly for software companies. You're not changing your business model around and saying, oh, we're also going to do this, we're also going to do that. You're very focused on what you do, and you're very successful at it. Same with you, Lino, right?
But let me be honest, we didn't always have focus.
Yeah.
And a lot of our problems were because we didn't focus. If someone would beg us to do training, and we'd do it. And we'd lose focus on our core business, and all hell breaks loose at that point. I don't know if that's the case for you guys.
One of the best things that I'll tell you for the last 10 years with Falafel is that 6 projects that we worked on for customers ended up being a product that they went and sold the company based on that product. So we built the product for them. They knew how to take that product, and they brought us in as pseudo CTO to be able to answer the questions, but they went public with that product, or they got bought by a bigger company because of that product. And the way it starts, usually somebody wants to create a new ERP system. There's so many ERP systems out of the box, right? But they are maybe working in the food industry for perishable goods. Well, Oracle and SAP and all these guys don't have specific ERP systems for perishable goods for food. So if they go to Oracle, $2.5 million just to get the box, and then you have to spend another $2 million just to customize it to work with that. So if we're going to spend that kind of money anyway, let's get somebody that will actually write it specifically for us and will have the product. So we work on the product. It took about 2.5 years to build a full-blown ERP system in ASP.NET.
Wow.
That will work extremely fast. And after that, once they went to market, other perishable goods all over the United States saw the product from them. It's like, we would like to license that from you. So they started licensing out. I was like, hey, let's start another company just for that product. And now the product is haywired.
Now, did you stay involved with that? Do you have an interest in that new business?
Yeah, it's been 7 years now. So since that shipped, now they want to spend more money to actually more features and so on. So the question you ask yourself, what would have happened if we have actually created a product for Falafel software?
Right.
But we would have never been successful because we don't have any in on the perishable goods.
But you could have gone the other way. You could have said, "Oh, I'm just a for hire contract," and not gone into those licensing agreements, right?
No, they did. We didn't. We just wrote it for that one company, and then they took our work and they started licensing from them for that company.
Oh, so you weren't involved in that deal at all?
No, because we wouldn't have been able to penetrate into the community of perishable goods ERP
Right.
system. We are a consulting company for .NET. What do I know about vegetables?
Right.
But they were able to be very successful. They sold it for over $100 million.
Nice.
Wow.
So it was really incredible. And that happened over and over again.
Wow.
We wrote application, for instance, for the Pentagon. And then the Pentagon shows this to the U.S. Army, to the Air Force, and whatever. And then we get called by all of them to customize it, make things here and there. So same thing for medical companies, hospital. You get into one hospital and everybody's like, oh, I want that WPF application. Now our code is running in 132 hospitals on the East Coast. Wow. So this is how it starts. Would we have been able to take that product and sell it? We're no doctors. Well, maybe Tim.
And you're still benefiting from it because every customer is a potential customer of yours.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they want to customize something that will take like one XAML file to change, and I'm like, it's going to take 6 months.
But interesting, different kind of partnership model here. I mean, there's the partners you have within your own business that obviously offset the different skills, and then there's the partnership with other businesses that have a different set of skills as well. They're experts in medical or they're experts in perishable foods, and you're the expert in software, so there is a partnership there.
There is a partnership. They bring in the knowledge about the business itself, whether it's medical or military or whatever, which we have no idea about. We know about the software. So there is time we have to spend to understand their business as well, whether it's accounting, ERP systems, or whatever. So we have to really understand what's going on. So there's a big time has to spend beginning to understand what's going on. After that, we can bring the technical expertise. But as far as the knowledge about the industry itself, that comes from them.
You know, there's something we haven't touched on yet, which I'd like to, because a lot of .NET developers don't even think about this, and that's liability insurance. Yeah. If you're in a consulting company, how important is that? Isn't that absolutely necessary in this business? Because
Absolutely.
It's a sue-happy business.
Absolutely, yeah. We started the company in 2003 with $1 million liability insurance. Very quickly I found out that that doesn't mean much, so it went to $2 million, then it went to $5 million, and now we are at $50 million per incident for liability insurance. That means if somebody writes code to bring the Wall Street down, I cannot get sued for it. Or if I get sued, my insurance actually can get something to be done about that. But our contracts for the company are 10 pages, and some of it was like, you know what? Some code in application might be written by Tim, so we're not liable for that stuff.
Well, you certainly learned to appreciate lawyers.
Oh,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I never did.
And I mean, my God, for the last 3-4 years, it's all lawyers with me.
Yeah, setting up Actus.
Because, I mean, I'm not trying to be cynical, but companies see your success. They see you making money. You're a target for a lawsuit, whether you did anything wrong or not.
And
Isn't that
America
true?
is a sue-happy country.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. And it's a shame, but it is.
Litigious business. So, I mean, this sort of walks us into this idea of surrounding yourself with the professionals. You need a lawyer.
A hitman?
You need different kinds of professionals.
Lino's for hire.
An accountant.
Well, as you get bigger, you don't just need one lawyer for general counsel. You need, your tax lawyer, and there's lawyers everywhere.
Yeah, in case you want to sue your lawyer, you have to have...
You need
And the
another lawyer.
lawyers, and the lawyers don't get along, right?
Yeah.
Your own lawyers don't get along.
So I take it from the laughter and everything, you've had some experience with this. Yeah.
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 From a startup perspective, we're not necessarily liable for, in the same way that Lino says, we write code that brings down the New York Stock Exchange, but the product itself has to work as advertised. Right, so we're selling a product to somebody else, and they're making business decisions based on the product. Those business decisions are life or death for that particular company. So we have to guarantee the accuracy of our software. But that also doesn't case because there's ways around that by saying this software is provided as is.
Right. This is the end user license agreement.
However,
But does that protect you, really?
That actually does protect you a lot because at the same time is, if you are going to you're looking at something on the news, on the television, and they tell you some information. You can't really sue the news for that particular information because we were an information company. However, where we could get sued and where things are problematic are service level agreements, right? So we had to make sure that our service, because our service fed into Bloomberg. For those of you that are not the mayor, but Bloomberg has a financial services data aggregation service. Kind of like a Flipboard for Wall Street people. So we fed our data into Bloomberg, and we had to guarantee that by certain times of the day, certain days of the week, we would have certain things done, or we face financial penalties.
But generally, I hate to say it, but I've actually read end user license agreements. They're not fun to read, but the main thing it says is the limit of our exposure is the amount of money you paid for the software.
Yep.
Right, that's the whole thing is, we shut down the Denver airport and many millions of dollars was lost, but
We'll give you your money back.
we were only going to give you your money back. You're not going to pay for all of your losses. I mean, that's really the essence of even service level agreements generally limit themselves to,
Fines, actually. Yeah.
Do we need to have a service level agreement for .NET Rocks?
Well,
Because we can't really give people their money back.
no. There is an advantage to not being paid directly.
Yeah, I guess so. That's a very good point. People who release software into the public domain, and put it up as open source software, are they naturally just exempt from any liability because they're not selling the software? Do you get all the?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that these marketplaces, especially on the Apple side, there are some big problems with information protection.
Right.
You're getting to areas that we're not experts in.
Yeah.
We're not
Huge
lawyers.
problem.
We could do a show around this, but I think we put
Intellectual-
lawyers on the stand.
Legal
for it.
IP,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, it's a huge issue, but I think it's certainly, getting back to if you're an entrepreneur who wants to get out and start playing with these things, you need to have some legal counsel.
Yeah. For instance, for falafel, we have never been sued ever for the last 10 years, but it came as close as this, and hopefully somebody here will actually understand what I'm saying. Somebody saying, I'd like you to build this for me. We'll tell them it will take 80 hours. We charge this per hour. And then you ship the product and they found a bug. It's like, okay, you need to fix that bug. Sure, no problem. That's be an extra 2 hours. No, I already paid. But we are on time and material. So they expect you now to live for the rest of your life fixing and doing whatever to that 80 hours.
Because the bug was your fault.
Yeah,
Right.
well,
Right.
and we try to explain to somebody, it's like bugs are part of software development. All right, you're always going to find a bug. Nothing is perfect, but the product works. You're going to find a bug, no problem. We'll spend an extra 2 hours, and they don't like that sometimes.
Yeah.
If they have not been in the software industry, that's not their thing. They expect you, like, if I find a bug from now till you are 65 years old, you're going to fix it for me for free. And usually that's when I say no.
Yeah.
I guess that's managing customer expectation as much as anything else, helping them understand what software is really like.
So let's say you're working in a company anywhere in the world, and you're a software developer, and you're working for these people. What are some of the telltale signs that it's time to go out on your own?
When your next door neighbor buys a Ferrari.
No comment, Lino?
No habla inglés.
Muy bien. I actually, here, in all seriousness, it is always a good time to go out on your own and start a business. Actually, downturns and recessions are great times to start a business. Right after September 11th, in the height of the craziness and the recession, I started a business, sold it 5 years later, right? And right after Lehman Brothers, started another business and sold it 2 years later, right? So, 2 recessions, great time to start a business. During boom times, another great time to start a business. So it's always a good time to start a business.
It's just a question of how what's the advantage in a downturn? Why would you want to start one there?
Things are cheap.
Well, things are cheap. Also, there's a lot of talent out there. So there's a lot of people that are looking, either unemployed labor, or in our case, in the tech industry, there's not many unemployed developers because we're actually at a developer drought these days. But developers that are stuck in a job because they can't move, because the company is hurting, or they've dropped bonuses or no raises, so you can get a developer on board and say, hey, take a part of equity or something like that. Also, you're less likely to get a copycat me too. So if you're building a product, and your product is, you're selling, ice cream over the internet, People actually do it.
Yeah, I bought some. I just bought some yesterday.
So you're selling ice cream over the internet. That's your great idea. Well, in a recession, you might get one or two people that see your idea, because you're always only 6 months out, or you're only 6 months ahead of the next guy, right? So someone might get that idea. In a recession, maybe only 2 people will start to compete with you. In the boom times, it will be a dozen.
Yeah.
I also think that when in a downturn, your customers are more sensitive to return on investment. So there's a story you tell in a downturn that's different than the story you tell in a boom time. That it's just about messaging, how you communicate, how you pitch your product.
You're absolutely right. The other company I started a few years ago, I always say, and this is great if you're an entrepreneur, you need an analogy. You need the 1-minute elevator pitch. I say, if you're with Warren Buffett in an elevator, you need 1 sentence to tell them what to do. And my wife always hates when I say this, but my last business was Expedia.com for ocean freight containers. If you know what
I get it.
Yeah, if you know what Expedia.com is, right, the airplane, right, you know what the last business does. That was started right in the height of the last, I still think we're in this recession, and so that was started at the height of the recession, and we had a different conversation with the customers. It was about saving money. Yes, they're going to pay us money, but ultimately we presented the case. And the way it really worked out is it cost them $100 to do something, and our system, it would cost them $7. So we said, you can move more product by still spending that $100, but you can move, like 10 times more product, right? And that was the value proposition we brought to them.
Very good.
Guys, any other key bits of advice? What about the whole hiring and firing thing?
Yeah, I'd like to share something that I learned from Steve Jobs, which is said, A players hire A+ players, B players hire C players, and C players hire D players. Always think of that when you want to start a company. Doesn't matter really that maybe you're not the top dog in the company. If you hire excellent, great people, that will always lift the company up. People that are not so sure about themselves or not so good, they always want to hire people that do not make them look bad. Right. So they hire people below them a little bit. But if to build a company that's great, you always have to find the best, absolute best talent out there, and that will be the best thing you can do for your company.
I could not agree more.
And
that the attribute of, you can tell a good engineer because they're very honest about what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I've always sensed that the difference between a junior developer and a senior developer is a senior developer says, I don't know more often.
Exactly. And that happens for business people too. Mm-hmm. If you pretend like you know everything, man, that's a red flag.
Yep.
Yeah. But the hiring and firing thing is difficult.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at it. I'm awful. I like everybody. That's why I'm not allowed to interview in my own company. Right? I would hire everybody. So you think I'm kidding, but it's true. I am not allowed to interview anybody in my own company.
Lino, do you do hiring, firing?
Yeah, I do all the.
But you're such an emotional guy.
I do. That's why I'm not the decision maker. I just interview them.
Yeah. He just likes to meet people.
Yeah. No, I actually. Sometimes the team will be on the fence. Like 4 or 5 people will say, "I think this person is a go," and 5 people will say, "Like, I don't know. He didn't pass the link questions, or didn't know what this works." So I was okay. So he or she has to go through the Lino test, which we'll go out for lunch together and we'll talk technical.
Yeah.
And I will. It's not only. I would rather get somebody that doesn't know everything, but has a personality to learn, instead of somebody who is very good but will not be able to pick up new things. In this industry, that doesn't work.
Right.
You have to be able to. So I love it when during the interview somebody tells me, "No, I have never used Link before." That's awesome. I'm going to explain
because you know
how
you're going
Link
to blow
works.
their mind.
I'm going to actually tell them how Link works for about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to ask them a question about what I just explained to them, and see if they understood what I said or not.
Oh,
And
that's
if they
brilliant.
did, that means we can work together.
Yeah.
I don't care if you know all about Link and you cannot learn anything new. So,
Right.
That is a brilliant technique.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Well, the thing with the hiring and the firing is you have to become dispassionate about it. At the end of the day, it is a business decision. And if you think, as Tim said, he loves everyone and it's very hard to do, there are at least 5 people in New York City that I have hired at one startup, laid them off, and then another startup hired them again. Right?
Yeah.
And people are like, why would that person, and there's one guy that did it with 3 companies. There's one individual living in New York City today that I've hired twice, fired twice, and hired a 3rd time. And it was dispassionate. And I explained, it was obvious what was coming. They understood. We talked about it. And it was one of the most difficult things I've had to do. But at the end of the day, it was a business decision. And, it's very tough, but it has to be done.
So I have a story for you. I went to, about the same time I was getting into programming on the PC XT clone.
$10,000, yeah.
No, this was only $799.
Okay.
Back in whenever it was. It was a clone, right? I was in a recording engineering school in Florida, learning about whether I wanted to go into the music business. And I look around and saw some of the idiots in the music business, and I said, I think I'm going to go into computer programming. But I had one class, a production class, and the producer, the teacher, gave me the most brilliant advice that I've ever heard. And this is an interpersonal story. So in a recording session, if you're the producer, your job isn't to make the music. Your job is to keep everybody on task, motivated. You're the sort of the product manager on a software developer team. But it's your job to come up with the final product, right, for the record company. And if you're not focused and you're not disciplined, you will let your personal feelings about a particular drummer who can't make it get in the way. And what you should really be doing is pulling the band aside and said, this guy needs to go now. I've got another drummer who can come in and replace him right now. That's what we're going to do. And the artists are like, oh my God, but if something is holding you back, get rid of it and do something else. He also said the most important 2 words that you can use when a session is going badly and people aren't cutting it and the downward spiral starts are the 2 words, let's eat. You basically take everybody to lunch, you get the blood sugar settled, right? They have a chance to relax and refocus, regroup, come back in, you'll always get a better track.
Carl and I do this a lot, as you can see.
Yeah, let's eat.
Yeah, there's very few problems can't be solved by pizza.
So if you're in that meeting, and things are going badly and people are just getting at it, it's time for lunch. But everybody's got to go to lunch.
Well, this brings up a point is you should never start a business with friends.
That's very true. It's very true.
You should never, ever start a business with friends because when that difficult decision comes, it then becomes very emotional.
I've had to do it twice. Not with .NET Rocks, but with my other company. And it's very difficult.
And when I've lured, in my role at Telerik, I've been luring people, say, oh, you've been hiring a couple of your friends of late. And I said, one of the first things I tell them when I lure them and tell them the great things about coming to work at Telerik, I said, I will not hesitate to fire you if I have to. Right? I just said it right on the table. I said, if you're comfortable with that, I said, I don't want it to affect the friendship. I said, actually, the friendship should make it easier that I can have the honest conversation with you, right? But most of the times, you have to have a very special relationship with a friend if you're going to start a business with them.
Very true. Well, guys, I think that's about a show, isn't it?
Yep.
All right, well, I'd like to thank our guests, Tim Huckaby, Lino Tadros, Stephen Forte. Let's give it up.
Thank you. Thank
We'll see you next time on .NET Rocks!
Thank you, Monsieur.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having us. Hit me, baby, one more time. I love this podcast.